Hello, everyone. Welcome to Brewing Talks. This is Madhulika, and I'm so glad to be a part of the show once again and bringing you, all you listeners, whether you're marketers, advertisers, coming from business industry, anywhere. It's so amazing to be back with season two. We had a wonderful season one where we had these amazing speakers and the creative minds that we were conversing with 30 plus episodes on different topics. And now, right just at the right time, we are back with season two. And I can't be happier than the fact that I'm welcoming back our speaker for this particular show, for this particular episode, who was a part of our season one as well for a very interesting topic earlier as. And I'm so glad to welcome Hitesh Rajwani, who is the CEO of Social Samosa. Welcome to Brewing Talks, Hitesh.
Thank you, Madhulika. Thanks a lot. Always happy to be a part of Brewing Talks, and I'm so excited about your season two. Congratulations for starting another innings to Brewing Talks.
Thank you so much. And since this show is pretty much centering around the latest trends in the marketing industry, what's the mindset about the consumers today, everything about digital, social, about brands. There's a lot to cover, and we have realized over a span of couple of years since we started the season one, there's so much has changed and evolved, and now we are in the post-pandemic era. There's like a recovery phase, and a lot has changed and shaped up after that. Consumer sentiments are rising, so today's topic is definitely very, very interesting because it brings us just at the right time. Where we're sitting today is the festive period, the right kind of marketing during the festive period, or let's say what is marketing during the festive period. Hitesh comes from Social Samosa, which is India's very popular online media publication. We are all, as we are targeting the marketers and advertisers, we know what Social Samosas is all about. So I think let's start with conversing on this episode topic, Hitesh, to understand first of all from your experience and from what you have been observing. What has been the concept? What has been the evolution of festive marketing over the years? Let's say if we saw it 10 years back or few years back to what it is today, has something changed, or the trends sort of remains more or less the same?
See, advertising during the festive season more or less remains the same. I believe like your fundamentals of how a brand should be communicating or what they should be talking about still remain the same. But what has changed is consumption patterns. So when I say consumption pattern, it's about like your consumer today, like maybe 10 years ago, they were tuned to very few digital avenues, and their main consumption would happen on TV or some bit of it on radio. But today, as we are in 2024, I think a lot of their consumption happens on digital platforms. So whether it is
Right.
YouTube, whether it is Instagram, whether it is even the use of Google for everything that they need, like Google businesses for that matter. So I think your consumers' consumption patterns have changed drastically in the last 10 to 12 years. And with that, then a lot in marketing has also changed. So the
Mm-hmm.
earlier focus would be to do one large piece of ad, which like one big asset that a brand would do during the
Yeah.
festival, that they would use it through and through. But today it's not that. Like today there is brands are also not just targeting cultures, they're targeting subcultures. So they're creating more content and not
Mm-hmm.
like very few pieces of content, and then obviously they're planning a lot of distribution around it. So earlier it
Okay.
would be that they would create an ad and it would only be uh, maybe like published on TV, like would be advertised on TV. Some bit of that ad, like a picture of it, would be on OH. Some bit of it would be on radio. But today, like brands are creating content for each of medium separately, and then they're distributing it also at scale.
Mm-hmm.
Distribution also has started gaining a lot more focus in the last 10 years. Earlier, the focus was more on creating that one great piece of ad.
Right. Okay. So I'm coming back to the point that, as I said in the beginning, that we are sitting right at the Diwali is approaching soon, and we just celebrated Navratris. But India is a big country, right? There are different cultures, different religions. So we see a mix of different festive period coming up in phases, whether it's Eid, whether it's Diwali, Christmas, New Year, everything put together, right? And also now consumers have started spending a lot more. We've seen this shift in the way people are, wanting to splurge, and they're not minding, just going like, completely all over in terms of their preferences, travel, shopping. It's like, that's why we also see so much of emergence of the e-commerce brands that's coming up over a period of time. Uh, but tell me, this festive marketing, is it more about offers and discounts that we see? Because we do see a lot of such offers, even from even if it's a brand of gold that it's being marketed. There's a lot of offers, that's offer centric marketing that happens, especially during the festive period. But is it always the offers part that the consumer is getting more attracted towards, or is there something beyond? Is it also an emotional connect that gets developed for brands over a period of time, or what is it from your perspective?
So, see, if I have to break it down, I think your last mile conversion during the festive would, like, the offers would have a major role to play. But
Mm-hmm.
for a consumer to consider your brand or the product that you're offering, like there might be certain products, like say gold, from a cultural context, it's like it's known that it's auspicious to buy gold during Diwali, or specific days of Diwali that you should buy gold for your home, or should buy silver on Dhanteras, or so on. So those products, there is no need for them to create consideration for them. Like for those brands, like say gold, silver brands, the idea is to make sure that amidst those 15, 20, or 100 of brands, how do they
Mm-hmm.
stand out? And that is where probably an emotional connect, or an ad that touches their emotion at some sense, or like touches their heart at some sense, is important. So to answer it, like the offers, like I said, would help a brand in a last mile conversion. But
Mm-hmm.
brand to build longer term relationships, they need to have great ads and great content that actually resonates with the audience. So
Right.
in one of the camps that we hosted recently, the Pali Nair, who's the CMO at CK Birla Group. She's the group CMO at CK Birla Group. So
Mm-hmm.
she put it very nicely to me in a conversation. She said, Hitesh, I think brands should use the transactional nature of Festive to build a long-term relationship with the consumers. While
Okay.
all this while we've been seeing this the other way around, that we build a relationship and
Mm.
then get into a transaction with consumers.
Correct.
But her POV was that, like, your customer is already in a transaction mode in that time frame. So you
Correct.
use that transaction to build a longer relationship with the consumer. And then I realized that it's a cycle. Like there are some
True.
transactions that will happen with the consumer over the year, but that relationship has to continue beyond those transactions too.
Correct, correct. Absolutely. That's very well said. And also, you spoke initially about, that earlier there used to be, if you see few years back or some years back, there used to be these few mediums that were very prevalent during the festive period, like, usage of television or usage of print. But now we have so much of digital happening. At the same time, there's a lot of emergence of startup brands coming up, which are very relevant during the festive period, selling that takes place for consumers. How do consumers and I would say, how do brands ensure that they are on top of mind recall of the consumers? Because there's so much of content. Even let's say you talk about the emotional side of the content, that a lot of brands storytelling that's happening. How do brand make sure that they are on the top of attention of the consumers? What it takes to make that happen from your perspective?
So I'll go back to what I said earlier as well. So I think back then, like in the golden era of advertising, that they say, uh, advertising used to happen once, twice, thrice, probably four times a year, and a brand would rely on those four ads for an entire year, which was like on a need to know basis. A brand would come up with a campaign. They have a new product launching, they'll come up with an ad. They have a specific offer which is very enticing for a consumer, they'll come up with an ad. But over the years, consumers want an always on approach. So they want your brand to be a part of their lives. And it's not like a very rhetorical thing to say, but if your brand is not present in the moment for a consumer, there are chances that your brand gets lost in the crowd. And
Right.
your brand gets lost in the crowd because brand loyalty as a concept has started vanishing, if I have to put it
Okay.
in all honesty. Today, if my preferred brand's products are not available, I
Mm-hmm.
have a number two preference, I have a number three preference. I would make do with it, though, like that first preference would always be there, but there are always backups for me as a consumer, and every
True.
consumer thinks it that way. That say at least for certain essentials, they if they don't have A, they'll go to B, C. Like even when you're looking at ordering, you would look at Amazon. You would find if there are good offers on Amazon, it's fine. If or else you would go to Flipkart or you would go to any other
Correct.
e-retail, or at the same time you'll go to this new age brand's website directly and try to figure out what you really want. So I think an always on approach really works for brands. You can't really wake up one day, do something, and then just go silent. Uh, though they say that no, silence is golden, but I think in this case, silence is really overrated. And you should always be talking to your consumer not just about your product or service, but probably about micro moments that are happening in their life. So it's just about making your presence felt at different points in time, not essentially selling all the time, but always being there. And that is how you would have a better recall. I won't say top of the mind recall would happen like that, but at least you would have a better recall. And to answer the second part where you said that how could brands stand out like amidst the clutter of communication, because so much content is thrown at them. So I think over the years, because of the complex nature of media ecosystem and the way your consumers are also evolving, we've started, and it's a very complex problem to see. So we've also started finding complex solutions to those complex problems. But the answer to those solutions, or the solution to those complex problems, is simplicity. So if a brand manages to simplify certain things in the life of a consumer, or if a brand manages to put an emotion of a certain festival with all simplicity, is when like they actually strike a chord. Or else today's consumer is so smart that they can always call it that they're just doing it for the sake of it, and there is no real emotion involved in it, or there is no place for this brand. So there are times when brands should know which, like, what is their place in that particular moment. Do they really have to be there for a consumer in a Raksha Bandhan moment, or there is some other occasion where they would fit in better for a consumer?
Okay, interesting. You said something, two things very interesting. One is that it cannot just be very specific for the first 3 4 months during the festive that you become loud and suddenly after that you disappear.
Yeah.
It has to be a very sustainable and a year round presence that you make with your relationship that you make with your consumers to win their trust over a period of time. And on top of that, if you have the add-ons like special offers, discount, that's where it becomes like an icing on the cake, right? And the second part you spoke is something that's very interesting, is the simplicity point of view, because that's what is being authentic in your conversations with your consumers or with the content that you carry, that connects very very strongly with the end audience at you. What is the role of social media now? That's something coming from you that will carry a lot of weight, that what is the role of social media today amidst this whole digital ecosystem that's, it's being heavy for brands to consider in their media plan or in their content creation process or everything. What is, and is there something new that the listeners needs to be aware of? Any new trend that you see coming up in a very big way?
I think to for a brand to be always on, social media is the most preferred medium, because you can't go on investing on print, on TV, on OH, because that is very expensive to do on a day-to-day basis for a brand. While social, at least the organic social, doesn't really cost you hard cost. Like it obviously costs you a lot of talent and time, like a lot of creativity that has to be invested in your approaches. But like social media helps you to be always on, and that is what like what we've learned in the last, maybe like when marketing as a discipline was growing, what we've learned is that brands should be human and they should behave like a personality. And if you had to jot down or write down your brand like this. Your brand should have these attributes. So all of that, which was very theoretical up until now, with
Mm-hmm.
social media, that has become very practical. So
Mm.
brands can be very human on social media. They can
Right.
act, behave, talk, comment like humans, and that is the beauty of social media in this whole scheme of things for brands. So
Correct.
a brand can be very real and very authentic on social media platforms, and obviously, other than that, with with ads, with other communication, that personality can be extended to larger mediums. But the human nature of brand can best be represented on their social media platforms. To answer the thing that what kind of trends that are happening, I think. So I won't have any future trends, but there are certain developments that are shaping the way brands are communicating. Like one thing being, like I think it's been happening for good 3 4 years now around how brands can do personalization at scale. So
Mm-hmm.
with AI, how I could probably record a certain message, but that message could have your name to it, could have
Right.
some
Right.
personal anecdote about you, and like those videos could be generated at scale. So I think
Correct.
so I come from Jodhpur, Rajasthan, and I have like I have a couple of sisters there, and for Raksha Bandhan, Zomato gave me an option to
Mm.
sort of add, like there was Sara Ali Khan's videos, and
Correct.
there was I think one more actor's videos, and like Zomato gave me an option to write my sister's name on the
Mm.
copy, and yeah, to just write my sister's name,
Correct.
and then
Customize it here.
there
Yeah.
was a customized message from which was spoken of from Sara Ali Khan, which went to my
I
sister.
know. Yeah.
So I think that kind of personalization at scale at this point, very few brands are doing it. But
Correct.
moving forward, it will become like very mainstream of sorts. So I think brands would find newer ways and avenues to do personalization at scale. The other trend with social media is, I think, uh, ties back to what I said about brands being more human. So, like in your Gen Z or like probably new age people terms, it's called a shit posting, which is like you don't put a lot of thought and effort into crafting that message every time, but you behave like just another human, and you talk about anything and everything that you see. So you have an opinion on like whether something is happening during a cricket match, or you have an opinion on like say if Pakistan has lost really badly against India in a certain match, a Swiggy Instamart would put a Bernal image and tweet it
Mm-hmm.
out.
Okay.
So like, this is basically not putting as much thought to what you're doing, but trying to be as normal and as human as you can be. And this also is in line with what I was talking about being very simplistic. It's
Right.
like it's a very simple first cut thought that okay, if something like that is happening, this is how a human would react. Like this will be
Right.
a good comment to put in a group of 10 people. Let's put it out and let's put it out to a mass medium. So I think again, shit posting might become very normalized. Like maybe at this point, about 15, 20, or 50 brands might be doing it well, but in the longer run, you would see a lot of brands adopting to this kind of communication, which is like very unhinged content which is like you don't have as many filters to you. Like you just speak your mind out, speak your heart out. Though obviously shitposting also has a lot of cons to it. Like you might get into trouble, you might blurt out something which is insensitive at that point in time, which might trigger a certain set of audiences. But like I think that is with every piece of communication that a brand puts out, that you might end up offending a certain set of people.
Okay, interesting. Also, just since we're talking about social media, what do you have to say about this growing popularity of influencers directly connecting with in festive marketing? You know, the influencer endorsing brands, or whether it's Diwali hampers or a jewelry brand. So what's the growing scene in the influencer community that you see? Is it again shaping up to something different, or is it the same thing that we are, or more number of influencers are coming up, micro influencers? So what's the scene there according to you?
So I think content creators up until I think last I think pre-COVID, if I have to talk, content creators are very experimental in a brand's media budget. They'll be like, it's like it's like dhania mirchi that you just put it in your campaign media mix, and like rest of it is obviously mainline media or something on Google and Meta ads. But off late, content creators have started growing up the value chain, and though it's very difficult to assign that, say, a content creator can actually drive sales for a certain brand, which ideally they do in my understanding, but there are a lot of other factors involved in that purchase decision, because your consumer has different touch points at different point in time. They must have seen an ad, then they must have seen an influencer endorsing your brand, then they must have seen some micro influencers or some influencer actually giving a very genuine review about that product, and that would be the last mile conversion for them.
Right.
So like of late, brands have started realizing that content creators can cater to different parts of the funnel, right from raising awareness for them to driving certain amount of consideration with very genuine authentic reviews, to even driving purchase decisions, which is the bottom of the funnel. Was that I think the industry overall doesn't document it as much in terms of attribution. Uh, like the attribution doesn't happen very, like I would say that there is a marketing mix modeling model that almost every big brand follows, but in that mix model, the attribution to influencers as a channel, even if it is happening at scale, it's not out in the public. So like a certain brand, maybe like say a phone brand might be driving a lot by collaborating with a Bhuvan Bam, or say a fashion brand might be gaining a lot by collaborating with a Komal Pandey or Nancy Thapi at this point in time,
True.
but it's not out there in the public. Like no one knows what kind of numbers did Nancy drive. Probably the
True.
brand team knows, the team managing Nancy knows, but no one else really knows about it. So the more I think talent agencies and influencer agencies put those case studies out in the public, and the more social proof influencers would get in festive scheme of things.
True. Okay, so I'm sort of digressing a bit, but obviously connecting still with the theme of our episode. What it could be your personal favorite? Any campaign, maybe anything new that you're witnessing or watching, or something some years back that strongly resonates with you from your emotion perspective. So any campaign during the festive period, like for example, you ask me this kuch meetha ho jaye is something that always comes to my mind when I think of bringing sweetness to your festivals or celebrations with your family, right, for example. So any campaign that you would like to highlight that has sort of taken your attention, and something that you want to talk about.
Yeah, so I mean, very like I think there are a lot of favorites for me. I think even drawing from what you mentioned about Kuch Meetha Ho Jaye, or like it's a very classic advertising case that Cadbury as a brand, which doesn't have Indian or traditional sweets, but still
Correct.
has managed to associate themselves with sweetness and with celebrations in any Indian context, and like they are
Correct.
there across every possible festival that way.
Correct.
So I think one of my favorites comes from Cadbury, and it's not just one campaign. I think they've been doing this for like good 2 3 years now, which is I think they did 2 seasons with Shah Rukh Khan as an ambassador, where they got like say any local business could get a video, could get a personalized video created in the voice of Shah Rukh Khan, where he says that this Diwali go out to say I don't know, classic stores and buy favorite sweets and chocolates from
Okay.
for your loved ones. And I love the concept of it, because this was right after COVID, where your local businesses would have suffered a lot in terms of business, and they wanted people to walk into their stores, and
True.
like a message coming from an ambassador like Shah Rukh Khan, which is very personalized to their particular store, really like I'm sure those shopkeepers must have downloaded it, put it out on WhatsApp statuses, and would have created a lot of impact for them. And for a brand like Cadbury, it sort of meets a lot of purpose for them. So that is one of the campaigns that stands out for me in the last few years. I think uh,
Hmm.
2017, 2018 HP ad, which was Amma Ki Diwali, which had like
Yeah.
a kid observing a lady selling diyas outside the store, and she was sad that like no one was buying diyas from her because a lot of diya buying also is either happening at your established stores or it's happening online. So that kid, out of
Hmm.
his innocence and his intent, goes prints uh, pamphlets for her, distributes it in the local, and the next thing you know is that like her all the stocks of Amma is sold, and then she
Correct.
realizes, okay, someone has done something. That's why this is
Hmm.
in for us. And I think that campaign actually has a very classic Diwali emotion attached to it. Like everyone wants to purchase diyas. Uh,
Hmm.
we tend to prefer convenience over local sellers and local vendors. And the message was very clear that you go, like, if you're doing purchases this Diwali, you do it from local businesses. I think, and that kind of ad actually connects the dots, like connects heartstrings, and actually it also drives shares. It's not just about commenting on it or just liking it, having that moment. People like to share it, so it gets shared across social platforms. People download it and share it too. So yeah, I mean, like that kind of content really resonates with me as a consumer as well, and as well as a marketer too. I think brands who try not to overdo or try not to
Hmm.
overstretch are the ones that eventually stand out for me during the festive season.
True, very true. Correct. Okay. Also, I think very recently, Social Samosa conducted this festive marketing camp. Would you like to share with all our listeners any specific highlight about this event and what was the key takeaways that the listeners can know about?
So I think there are a lot of takeaways from the festive marketing camp. But to give you a context, festive marketing camp is our platform for Indian advertising and marketing professionals to come together and discuss their learnings about how they've maximized outcomes during the festive season. What is it that has worked for them? What has not worked for them? What is it that they are eyeing this year? And the sessions actually focus on a lot of like a lot of aspects which are related to festive marketing, whether it is storytelling, whether it is planning the media mix, whether it is how do you use AI in the festive scheme of things, and so on. So I
Okay.
don't have like very specific
Mm-hmm.
takeaways, but I think there are some learnings from each session. Some of it I
Mm-hmm.
did share while this conversation was ongoing, but I think the other things you could definitely check out. Like there is a section on my site which is for festive marketing camp, and there are articles which are summarizing each of the session that we've done.
Okay.
But some learnings that I would want to give, not from just the camp, but in general on how brands should be looking at the festive season is the first thing is that festive is not just this time frame of that festival. Festive starts at least 2 3 months before that, and you need to
Hmm.
plan. Like you need to look at festive as that biggest cultural, like a cultural moment in your consumer's life, and you need to find your place as a brand in it. I think the second thing is, like I said, I mean, focus on creating content which is simple, which is like coming from very day to day observations. Don't really overthink it, just go ahead and create it. And once you are really happy with the output, even if it's not working well on your social, try to pick up that piece of content and see how you could distribute it better. Maybe the content is not the problem, the distribution is. And last thing is, I think again drawing from the answer that I gave for the influencers piece, I think we need to have better attribution models to what we do. Like we need to have a larger view of our brand's assets out there. So if I'm creating some video, I'm running ads on it, and parallelly I've run a promotion with an influencer, or an influencer, a big influencer has worked with me, or hundreds of micro influencers have worked with me. If my cost per action or cost per view on the ad side has reduced, then that influencer video also has a role to play. Or if my sales have shot up on the ads dashboard, that influencer has lent some amount of credibility and some amount of traction to what the brand is doing. So have a larger view of things, attribute. I have like more specific attribution models to whatever you're doing.
Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. Great. So I think I think this was a very, very interesting topic because, and the need of the hour, because I think while every brand and marketer is doing their best to, be visible and sustainably visible to their consumers to gain their interest level, especially during the festive time, I think we could understand from your perspective a lot of very, very important insight. I think starting with what I already mentioned earlier, it was about being simple, keeping it simple yet very impactful, touching the core emotion of your consumer, because that really goes a long way, not just from the specific tactical marketing point of view, but to also earn the trust over a period of time and connect emotionally with your consumers. And I think you also I think also what we will see over a period of time, maybe it's just the beginning. You gave an example of Zomato, that they use the AI tool to generate the wishing aspects for your family members. I think AI gradually we will see a lot more of such AI visible, especially during the festive time. It's just a matter of time of how innovative brands will become with the technology. So great. It was amazing having you on the show, Hitesh, and some very wonderful insights. And I'm sure all our listeners and the brand marketers and the businesses are going to be taking some very valuable information and using it for their own festive marketing. Thank you once again. And as I said, I'm very glad to have you back on the show, and thank you for sparing time for that.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's always a pleasure to have this chat.
I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of Brewing Talks. Thank you for tuning in. Sign up and subscribe to Brewing Talks on eplog.media. You can also listen to this podcast on Ghana, Spotify, Apple, and Google. And here's wishing you all a great festive time ahead. Catch up soon with our very next episode as I stir up marketing stories only on Brewing Talks.